There's a difference between reading hard and reading smart. Most of the time, as students, we tend to just read hard rather than reading smart. Now, I'm not disputing the fact that there are some kinds of exams that require you to read hard. Even when you have to read hard, you can also go smart about it. Let's take this scenario. For example, I'm a university student and I'm preparing for a semester exam. A semester exam is different from a professional exam. Professional exam are usually written towards the end of your course, but semester exams are the one you write at the end of each semester. And you're preparing for a semester exam, and there are usually study materials, there may be some video lectures, your notes, and some recommended textbooks. Many students will just go ahead and read the study materials, focus on their notes and then the videos, and try to just prioritize them based on which material they need the most. You only consult your recommended texts when they are significant to your study. Many of us don't know this. Like, I was also a victim of this in the beginning of my years when I got admission. I took both recommended textbooks and other kinds of textbooks and every other material I could find online, offline, and everywhere. I just bombarded myself. I was overwhelmed with so much data that there was little room for the actual information that was necessary. When I found myself in exam, I realized that the lecturer just focused on the study material. I was not smart. To be smart, you have to be able to know the kind of exam you're preparing for, the mode of the exam, and to use this information to know what kind of material to prioritize. Also, when you know who is setting your exam as well, all this information helps you to understand what kind of material to prioritize over what kind. For example, for my case, I should have prioritized the study material, my notes, and maybe the videos. I'm not disputing the fact that you might need to read textbooks in some cases, but it depends on the exam, it depends on the person setting the exam, it depends on the situation that you're in. If it's a professional exam, then definitely you should check out the recommended text. You should go in detail. If the mode of exam you're preparing for is theoretical rather than just multiple choice questions, then you need a textbook, a recommended textbook, to help you, to give you more information regarding each concept. If the study note is too brief, don't waste time on materials that won't end up being important to the success of that course. That is being smart. It's always best to know what to focus on rather than just trying to cover the whole thing. In this video, we're going to talk about 7 tips that will help you really understand the best way to go smart than just reading and reading. Hi, my name is Fad. If you're new to this channel, can you like the video as well as click on the subscribe button and the notification bell? There's a lot of information to share on this channel. So the first tip is using the distributed practice technique. Now, if you've watched similar videos to mine, you must have heard of the distributed practice technique. Now, many of us students, even myself particularly, I'm not pointing fingers, we wait till the end of this, towards the exam period, before we begin to pick our books and then overwhelm our brains with so much information. But even if we think that has been smart, that's not being smart. Being smart is starting your reading from the beginning of the semester. I tried this once during my 300 level first semester. I was shocked. Although I was not able to pick up all the courses, I had to just pick just 2 that I was most afraid of. And then I started reading them at the moderate level, I think about 6 hours every day. And those ended up being my most strongest course. Like, I was so confident in them. Reading from the beginning of the semester might seem like it's difficult to do because you have to build motivation and to just keep picking up those books every day, even if there's no exam you're looking forward to. But using this distributed practice helps you maintain a stable level of reading up till the exam day. And when other people are now beginning to read so much, providing their brains with so much information from different courses at the time in preparation for an exam, you just maintain that same level all through the exam, keeping your sanity in check and just keeping you balanced and cool. Tip number 2 is avoiding pseudo studying. Now, pseudo studying is the act of assuming a position of reading without actually reading. Like, someone who sees you will think that you're reading, but you're not reading. I used to do this a lot when I was younger, and my father would think I'm reading, but I'm not reading. He ended up saying I'm just busy doing nothing, and he was completely correct. Busy doing nothing is pseudo studying. You just look like you're busy, you're reading, you're engaged. You're not engaged. Your mind has flown away, you've zoned out, you've slept, you're joining a conversation while you're reading, you're listening to music while you're reading. Although people say that music helps them concentrate, but music makes your brain multitask. It makes your brain decode lyrics while you're also studying. So reading while you're listening to music is not so effective. Or if you have to do it though, you can just listen to beats rather than music. That is music without lyrics. that is still better. At least your brain does not have to decode lyrics while you're studying, and you can just go with the flow, because at times you need music to be able to stay awake. I use that a lot as well. Studio studying is also spending time on a topic. When you're spending too much time on a topic, then you are studio studying. You're probably, because you love that topic so much, you waste time on it, or because you don't know that topic at all, you waste time on it. Whichever the case is, you're studio studying. Every other topic in that course also matters, and you must allocate even time for all of them. You just have to know how to distribute your time properly so that you don't waste too much time on one, because at the end of the day, that one might only be a certain little percentage in the entire exam. Tip number 3 is active reading engagement. This is simply a series of techniques that you use to stay engaged in your reading, especially if you are reading for an extended period of time. First on this list is the active recall. Now, I talk about active recall a lot on this channel, and you can also check out some other video I've made about those. But active recall is simply reading, not just by placing information into your brain, but also by retrieving them. And the process of retrieving them strengthens the bond of that information in your memory, and so you're able to remember them much better. You can achieve this by question and answer, by teaching the concept. You don't have to just teach it to just human beings. You can also teach it to inanimate objects, like I'm talking to the camera right now. Then you can also achieve this by concept maps, using concept maps and diagrams in your readings. This brings us to tip number 4, concept maps. Now, concept maps are visual representation of information that you have in your study materials. Now, how do we do this? To make a concept map so easy, all you have to do is lay out your study guides or your lecture notes and look at all the concepts you're trying to understand together, and try to find the relationship between all each concept, how they go, because concept map kind of give you a bigger picture of how things relate to one another. I remember using these concept maps when I was trying to learn the landmarks on pelvic inlet in my anatomy, and we had to learn these landmarks in a particular order, and so I just drew a concept map and I highlighted each of the landmarks. And I also implemented mnemonics to help me remember them in that order. And at the end of the day, I had something visual that I could picture in my head, as well as a mnemonic to help me remember the order. And so I could produce these landmarks in a correct order as faster than someone who just learnt it by just understanding how it looks. And so it takes time for you to quickly reason them and try to figure out how they are arranged. And if you just place them in a concept map, that way you're able to bring up the answer faster than someone who has to reason and picture it. So being smart, also being faster, being sharper, if that's the word. Tip number 5 is avoid multitasking. Multitasking, like I already said earlier, is reading and listening to music at the same time, reading and chatting, reading and being on social media, scrolling, reading and watching a movie. Just anything that distracts you from being 100% focused on your book is multitasking, because your brain has to integrate not just the information you're trying to read in that book, but also the information of whatever it is you're distracting yourself with. And that will definitely slow down the rate of assimilation of that study, prolonging the time of reading and just making you miss out on certain details. Tip number 6 is the use of mnemonics. I already mentioned mnemonics in one other video that I made in this channel. I think I might want to create a separate video for mnemonics though. But mnemonics is simply representing a new knowledge with elements of a long-term knowledge in your brain, so that you can easily remember that new knowledge easier. Like I made mention in that video, I said tuberculosis. To remember tuberculosis, all you need to do is remember tuber of yam, and because tuber of yam is something that is already in your long-term memory, you can remember it easily. So when you remember tuber of yam, it makes you remember tuberculosis. Doing something like that is called mnemonics, and mnemonics can be in audio, visual, kinesthetic, whichever form that works well for you is what you're implementing. But the most commonly used is the auditory mnemonics. For example, we have the short poem. You can make a list of types of things or examples of things into poem that you just sing to yourself in exam, and you're able to reproduce your answer. That's a very fast way to remember stuff, and then at times it does prevent you from forgetting. Another type is the use of initialism, acronyms, or memorable phrases. These are different forms of mnemonics that you can definitely implement. I'm going to talk about this in a different video. I really hope you subscribe and check out the video when it comes out. And lastly, tip number 7 is silence isn't golden. Actually, I just said silence. Most of us students believe that we have to be in an environment that is completely silent before we can read. Like going to the library to read is the only way to go. It works for most people, but for some people, too much silence is actually distracting, because it simply creates avenue for your mind to start thinking, your thoughts start going wild, and then those thoughts can distract you just as much as any form of distraction. Total silence can also make you fall asleep. It's just about studying yourself and seeing what works for you. You realize that most of us students tend to forget up to 30% of what we read in just about 24 hours after we read. This is a simple natural process that we call the forgetting curve. But there's a way to beat the forgetting curve. I talked about all of this in a video that should be on screen right now. So you should definitely check out the video to understand how to always remember stuff.